Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to my library here at home. The library at school is still not done yet. It's not going to be done for a few more weeks, so we're just filming everything here. And our drink of the episode is going to be key lime LaCroix, key lime seltzer water. This is one of my all-time favorites because it really does taste more than just lime. It tastes like key lime. Oh, so good. So as you probably know, I am a high school librarian. I thought it would be interesting to tell you guys what are my favorite young adult books of all time, because obviously I've read a lot of them, not like by any means a ton or anything, but I've read a decent few in my time as a librarian. So I thought it'd be interesting just to tell you what are my top 10 young adult books of all time. And I had trouble putting these in order. I would say the top 3 are pretty much set in stone. The other 7 are kind of all over the place. Like you could mix and match these numbers. It's not like number 10 is definitely my least favorite or something or anything. So without further ado, let's talk about my top 10. One honorable mention before we start is The City of Dreaming books by Walter Moers, however you say it, Moers. This is translated from German, I'm pretty sure, and it's technically in a series, this like really strange, bizarre fantasy world. Oh yeah, it's from Germany. Yeah. This really strange, bizarre series. And I don't even know to tell you if it's young adult or not. That's why it's an honorable mention. It's definitely, I mean, it could be young adult or it could be adult. It could also be almost like a children's book. I mean, it's not really a children's book. But if you love books, this is a book about books. And yes, the main character is a dinosaur, but it doesn't matter. You can just ignore that. And his name is Optimus Yarnspinner. And he goes off to this City of Dreaming books and goes through this like labyrinth underground and discovers these secrets. And there's like book monsters. And it is so fun. This is one of my favorite books of all time ever. It'd be at the top of this list. It's just I'm not sure it's YA. It could be actual adult. I don't know. It's very long. There's a lot of words per page. But I do think young adults would very much enjoy it. And so would you. Everybody should read this book. It's so good. Number 10, I'm going to say, is Solstice. I don't have a copy of every single one of these books, sadly, so I'll hold up the ones I do have, but this one I need to buy a copy because I love it so much. But Solstice by Lawrence Allison. I think I gave this book 4 stars. Not all of these books are 5 stars. Actually, only 3 of them are 5 stars. I don't really rate young adult books very highly, clearly. But this one I did give 4 stars, and it was one of my favorites that got me kind of back into reading young adult literature. And it's very, very short. It's very fast-paced. It's a mystery, but it's set on an island, so it's a great summertime read. Basically, it's about a girl who goes to a music festival. It's a very expensive music festival. It's kind of like that Fire Festival that happened in real life. Was it Jay-Z? No, not Jay-Z. Ja Rule? I don't know. Some rapper that planned Fire Festival, but like they did a bad job and the festival was terrible. That's what this is like. The festival itself is not all it's cracked up to be, even though it's very expensive. And the main character cannot really afford a ticket to get there, but her friend can, and her friend buys her a ticket. And she goes to the festival without even telling her parents that she's going. She kind of sneaks off. She's got this guy that she's been talking with, you know, back home, and she's texting him while she's at this festival, and then a body washes up on the shore when they get there, and it's like you don't know if somebody at the music festival is the killer. You don't know if it's something supernatural. There's like legends of a sea monster like around this island. There's also possible killer jellyfish, so it could be something like natural. You just don't know, and that's what made it so much fun, and I very much enjoyed it. And like I said, it's kind of based on Fire Festival, but yeah, highly recommend. Next is a book I just finished 2 days ago, I think. Yeah, 2 days ago. And I'm already reading the sequel. I can't believe this is on my list. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This book is the start of a 4-book series, but this book was way better than I expected. I have a long past with this book. About 2 years ago, I tried to read it. I was listening to the audiobook, and I think that was the problem. But I DNF'd it the first time. And then this time I gave it like 4.25 stars. So it made me question everything about DNFing books. Like, maybe I should always give books a second chance. Or maybe it's because I was reading it on audio and clearly I should read more physically. You know, I don't know. But this book was so much better the second time. Read this book if you like supernatural stuff, kind of eerie, creepy vibes, but it's not set in the fall time. It's actually set in the spring. So it really can be read any time of year. It does sound like a fall time vibes. If you like paranormal stuff, psychics, groups of boys who go to a school that's kind of like Hogwarts, but it's not for magic or anything. But the raven is their symbol, so they all have like a raven on their little uniforms that they wear, and they're all rich, and they're so much fun. The 3 main boys that the main character kind of makes friends with. There's like people that can, like the main character sees a ghost at the beginning. She can't kiss her true love or he'll die. And also it's really about the hunt for a dead Welsh king. So yes, very atmospheric, so well written. I finally get the hype behind the whole Raven Cycle series, and like I said, I'm already starting book 2. Book number 8, like I said, these really could be in any order. This is not necessarily my 8th favorite or anything like that, but I'm going to give it to Fang Girl by Rainbow Rowell. This is shocking to everyone because it's realistic fiction with some romance in it, and you would think that that's not something I would read, but I think it really hit close to home for me because I used to write Harry Potter fan fiction when I was in middle school, and it's still on fanfiction.net, so maybe I should link it down below. Like, I'm scared of your reaction to it, but I'll link it, I guess. My series was called Hogwarts Deaths and Eaters. Yeah. It was a parody. It was a parody series, by the way, so it was supposed to be funny and ridiculous, but yeah, I'll link it down below. So in this book, we follow a girl who, she's going off to college, and that's another reason I love this book, is that so much YA is set, you know, with the main characters in high school. But this book is set with the main character going to college, and she's got a twin sister who's way more outgoing than she is. And our main character kind of has like social anxiety. She's more introverted, some trouble making some friends. She's got some issues with her roommate. Her roommate has a boyfriend who's kind of always hanging around. She also meets a boy that she like helps, you know, they're doing like homework and stuff together. So it's really just about like her and her college life, but also she is a very famous fan fiction author. Like, she basically writes Harry Potter fan fiction. In this world, it's not called Harry Potter, but I mean, it's basically Harry Potter. And what's fun is, if you don't know the story, Rainbow Rowell, the author, after this book became popular, she then wrote the fan fiction, the actual book that this girl supposedly wrote. It's called Carry On, and it's a whole series as well. I think it's a trilogy. And I read the first one, and I thought it was pretty good. Like, I didn't like it as much as I did this one. But yeah, this one, you just follow this girl who is a famous fan fiction author. And now most people she runs into don't know she's like famous online. But it's just kind of her struggles in college, especially with being introverted and trying to make friends and some boy troubles. And I don't know, I just loved it so much, and I highly recommend it. Okay, number 7 is going to be House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I cannot wait to read Crystal Sutherland's new book. I've got to read it this fall. I think it's called The Invocation, something like that. Anyway, this book, I talk about this book all the time, but it basically follows 3 sisters whose their last name is Hollow, which, I mean, how cool is that? Is the main character Iris? Yeah, there was one named Iris. There was Iris Hollow, Gray Hollow, and then I can't remember the other sister's name. But I always love books like where there's like a sister dynamic. I always used to pretend when I was little like I had a sister because I'm an only child, so something about that just... I love the sister dynamic. Their older sister, Gray, is like super famous, and I love books about famous people, so I kind of like that aspect. But the main character, Iris, is not super famous, but they're all the sisters are kind of famous because when they were young, they were kidnapped and they disappeared for a while. I can't remember. It was a while, like months, I think. And nobody knows where they went, and one day they just showed back up. But ever since, there's been something kind of like off about them. Like, I think their eyes are different colors. They kind of like smell rotten, you know, like they went somewhere else. And so there's this supernatural aspect to it too. And then there's like this creepy guy who seems to be after them that wears like this scary looking mask. And the ending is such a twist. It was one of the best endings I've ever read. I would say it's kind of like a modern day fairy tale, but like dark. And I want to read this book again so badly. Even just talking about it makes me want to read it again. Number 6 goes to a young adult fantasy, which me and young adult fantasy usually do not get along, but I thought Ray Bear was my favorite young adult fantasy that I have ever read. And it's a duology, so just know that going into it that this is not the full story. The second book, super pretty, not as good. I mean, it was still fine. Like, I think I gave it 4 stars, but this one... The author worked on this book for years and years and years. Like, she had this idea since she was like a little girl, and she'd worked on it for, I mean, absolutely forever. I think since she was like 14 years old. This one she had to write very quickly during the pandemic times because her, you know, publisher, editor, whatever, wanted to get it out. So you can tell there wasn't as much kind of care maybe that went into it as went into this book. This was like her, you know, her baby. And this one is so amazing. It won, I think it won some awards, but it was also one of the 10 KBA books, the Kentucky Book Award nominee choices for that year, which is why I read it for school actually. And what I will say is that if you read this premise, it sounds okay. I honestly don't even read this. Like, it sounds decent, but this happens within the first, I don't know, 50 or so pages of the book. So I was like, where the heck's it going to go from here? Because I feel like a lot of times books will give too much of the plot summary away here, and it takes forever for you to get to like new stuff. You're like, yeah, I already knew this was going to happen because it told me. So I was just really shocked where this went, the direction it went. At one point, it even turned into like a jungle adventure. Like, there's a little bit of everything in here. Yes, there's a little romance, but I would not say it's like the main plot of the book. But it's definitely kind of like African-inspired fantasy, but it's such an original, unique story about this girl, Terasai, who is basically raised by this weird assassin person called the Lady. And when she comes of age, the Lady sends her to the capital to kill the crown prince. She's supposed to join his Council of 11 and then kill him and betray him once he gains her trust. And does she do that? I don't know. Fine, read the book and find out. Oh, and the one other thing I want to say about this one is that I think it has the most world building of any young adult book I've ever read. Also, of most fantasies I've ever read. I would say, you know, it's like the young adult version of Game of Thrones when it comes to how much world building there is. So I absolutely love that aspect of it. Honestly, I wish this series were a lot longer. Number 5, I'm giving to The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I just read this not too long ago. It's the first of a 4-book series about these teenagers who all kind of have powers. They're not like actual supernatural powers, but they're almost, I mean, they're natural. They're naturals at something. So it kind of reminds me of X-Men because each character has a different power. And the main character, Cassie, her power is that she can, I call it a power. It's not a power, just her talent is that she's a criminal profiler and she can think like the criminals do, basically. And one of the other characters is also a criminal profiler, which makes it interesting. One character can read people's emotions really well. One character is basically a human lie detector. She almost seems superhero-esque. Like, she almost has too much power. Like, she can just tell if somebody's lying. I don't know. It would be very helpful for them to have her on their team at all times, but I feel like they don't bring her along to every scene because she would be too helpful if they did. And then the other character is really good at, like, statistics and knows random facts and is kind of like a walking encyclopedia. And their friendship dynamic, because they all have to live together in this house because the CIA or FBI, was it FBI? I can't remember now, but they need these teenagers, which, you know, sounds kind of silly. And at first the teenagers are only supposed to work on cold cases because obviously, you know, they don't want them actively involved trying to find like serial killers. But now guess what? They're actively involved trying to find serial killers. And the main character's mom theoretically was murdered many years ago, but they never actually found her body, just like a bunch of blood. So I'm pretty sure the mom's still gonna be alive, but she's connected in some ways to some of these serial killers. And there's, I think, a different killer kind of in each book, but then I have a feeling in the last book it's all gonna come together with like more of the story about her mom. And I love the first book. I thought it was so much fun. Yes, there's a little hint of a love triangle in there, but it's not, I don't feel like it takes over the plot of the book. So I still highly recommend this book, especially if you're a fan of things like Good Girl's Guide to Murder or I Hunt Killers, books like that. Okay, we're getting close to the top now. So my last book that I didn't give 4 stars, but I gave, or 5 stars too, but I gave 4.5 is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna Maguire. It's a novella it's in a series. This is the 2nd book. Honestly, I think the 5th book I also gave 4.5 stars. So it's hard to decide if it's this book or the 5th book. I didn't want to do 2 books from the same series though. So this one and the 5th one are both my favorites in the Wayward Children series. So the Wayward Children series in the first book follows a girl, and you follow different characters in each book, which is what I like. Now, they do have some of the same characters in each one, but you follow a different main character, mostly, each time. But you follow a character who goes to this school. It's called the Wayward School. Eleanor West, is that what it's called? Eleanor West Wayward School for Children. Yeah, for wayward children. And it's girls who have been in other, not just girls, anybody, who's been in other worlds, kind of like Alice in Wonderland, or like they went through the door to Narnia, the closet, or the wardrobe or whatever, and then they come back. And what happens if you can't find your door again, but you like want to go back to your world? And some characters want to go back to their world, and those are the ones who go to Eleanor's West School, but then there's another school, and you do get to see it later in the series, for people who don't want to go back to their worlds, you know, that might have been like traumatized by their worlds or whatever. They go to a different school. So this school is so much fun, and the characters are not supposed to go on quests. That's like the one rule of the school, is that there are no quests allowed. And what do? They're always going on quests, for sure. They're short though, they're little novellas, and any book that follows Jack and Jill, which are these sisters who go to a really bleak world, and there's vampires in this world, and one of them, Jack and Jill, like one of them is kind of almost like totally evil serial killer, and I don't know, it's just, they're so much fun. And so this is a Jack and Jill story. This was their first story. And then they're also, I think, the main characters in book 5, which was called Come Tumbling Down, which is my other favorite in the series. Not every book in the series is 4 stars for me. Some were 3, but for the majority, they were 4 stars. But this one was 4.5, and I loved it. Okay, we're into the top 3. These 3 are the 3 that I have given 5 stars to, the only young adult books I've ever given 5 stars. It was hard to number them in order, but I think I've got it. Number 3, now these are in order. Number 3, but it was still 5 stars, As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the 3rd and final book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I do recommend the entire series. I gave the first book 4.5, something like that. It was really, really good. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It's great. Loved it. It's for a young adult mystery. Like, my favorite part of that book was that There's this overarching mystery, and then as you go, the character kind of discovers a clue and then solves that part of the mystery, then finds another clue and then solves like that part of the mystery. And my problem with the second book was that it was a bunch of clues that just didn't add up to anything until the very end. And I feel like there was no way you could have solved it, which you probably couldn't have solved the first one either. Like, I feel like they're pretty unpredictable. But this book, guys, it's nothing like the first two. The first half is it was still pretty typical for the series. Like, there's a mystery, whatever, killer, that kind of thing. Second half goes off the rails and is one of the wildest things I've ever read. The plot gets insane. Is it ridiculous and over the top and definitely not really plausible to happen in real life? Yes. Was it so much fun and like one of the best experiences I've had with reading a young adult book? Yes. So I do recommend the whole series. You do have to read books 1 and 2 though before you can read book 3. It won't make sense if you don't. It does all tie together. It's kind of one big mystery. So you have to read the other 2, but they're really good as well. But this one, amazing, phenomenal. Okay, number 2, somehow I don't own a copy of. Gotta buy it ASAP because you can probably guess what's gonna be up here because I talk about it all the time. And that is I Hunt Killers by Barry Lyga. This book sounded so ridiculous to me when I heard the title. I was like, I Hunt Killers? Like, who wants to read that? That sounds like it's gonna be so epically bad. The title does not do it justice. The cover does not do it justice. This is one of the most intense, deep, young adult books I've ever read. And I say intense, like even for an adult thriller, this would be intense. Like this reads more adult. Technically it's listed as young adult, but it is very intense. It's got gore and it's gruesome and just the themes in it are intense. But it's basically about a kid. I mean, he's a teenager, but his dad is the world's most notorious serial killer. He's killed like 120 women and he's behind bars at the start of the book. So you're like, well, okay, the dad's not the serial killer, so who is the serial killer? Well, there is a serial killer now who is a copycat of his dad, and he's replicating his dad's kills in order that they happened and doing them the exact same way. So who knows better, who knows the father's kills better than his own son, because he actually took his son along with him to some of these kills. He wanted to train his son to be a serial killer, which is funny because that's actually a similar plot of The Naturals too. There's like that plot line in there too. So it's very, very similar. I don't know which one came first though. I feel like The Naturals copied it, but I could be wrong. But in I Hunt Killers, the main character gets called on by the police to help because obviously he's the one that knows his dad's like thinking. So he's trying to prevent more killings because he knows like what the next victim's gonna like look like, how they're gonna be killed. So he's trying to prevent the next one. So he's not really allowed to go and like out and, actively work on the crime because obviously that would be pretty dangerous. But he, of course, gets his friends together and they go out and do it anyway. So like by night, he's like solving crimes. And by day, he's just dealing with his typical high school drama. He's still got homework. He's still got to make good grades. He's being raised right now by his grandmother, his dad's mom. His dad was a serial killer. Can you imagine what his mom would be like? Like, she's kind of crazy. She's kind of lost her marbles. She's not really all there. And he's afraid that if people realize that she is basically totally nuts, that he'll be taken away from her and then he'll not have the freedom to do whatever he wants. He'll basically, be an orphan at that point. So he's decided that he is going to make people think that she's still taking care of him. At the heart of it all is the main character's internal conflict and the struggle that he has, that he thinks he will be as bad as his dad. He thinks that he will turn into a serial killer too. He thinks, oh my gosh, what if I enjoy this? What if I'm a bad person? And that's like his struggle throughout the entire book. He's so relatable. I mean, even though obviously like my dad was not a serial killer, but it's so fun. Such an interesting plot. I wish books 2 and 3 were as good. I wish I could recommend those, but honestly, I would just stop at book 1 if I were you, because books 2 and 3 are quite a letdown after how wonderful book was. But probably, it's right up there as being my favorite young adult book of all time. Which brings us to our final book. How could I find a book that I liked better than I Hunt Killers? Well, it's because it's one that involves a time loop. And if there's anything I love, it's a sucker for anything about like time travel, time loops, mysteries, being funny also. And that is my favorite young adult book of all time. Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. Don't judge it by the cover. Don't click off the video just because you see this ugly cover. I hate this cover. I feel like it looks really boring. It does not look like the wild ride that it is. This looks slow paced. This looks just kind of bland. This looks like realistic fiction to me. It is none of those things. This book is absolutely wild. Let me just tell you what. I don't want to read you the entire plot synopsis. And in fact, just even telling you anything about it is going to spoil a little bit. So if you don't want to know anything, just don't listen to this next little bit. But let me just read you a very short blurb. It says it's about Beatrice. She thought she left her past behind when she graduated high school. But when she reunites with her old friends, which I love that too, they're older, they're out of high school now, they find themselves trapped in a surreal and terrifying time loop after a mysterious car accident. They're in this weird car accident and basically they all die. Or do they? We don't know. They're in like this purgatory. In this dreamlike purgatory known as the Neverworld, they relive the same day repeatedly, facing their deepest fears and darkest secrets. To escape, they must vote on who among them gets to live, leading to a tense and psychological battle of trust and betrayal. Neverworld Wake is a mind-bending thriller that keeps you on the edge of your seat, questioning reality and morality until the very end. And what was so fun is that there is a mystery aspect in here too. One of the characters, was it that his dad had died? Honestly, it's been so long since I can't remember, but I remember there was a mystery and you have to try to solve that mystery as well. And they realize that maybe if they solve the mystery, then they can get out of this without having to choose who lives and who dies. But because they have to relive the same day over and over and over, they eventually just go their separate ways. Like there's a bunch of them and some of them go off and do certain things. Some of them go off and do other things. And it's just some of the things they wind up doing are just wild. And I absolutely love this book. I want to read it again like right now. Just talking about it. You know what? I think this is literally going to be the next book I read. It's also really short, barely 300 pages, 320, something like that. Not too many words per page. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm gonna finish the book I'm reading and then I'm gonna read this book. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully that was somewhat interesting to you. Those are my top 10 young adult books of all time, and hopefully I will find some more new favorites. Every time I read young adult books, I'm always surprised because there are quite a few good ones. There are a lot of bad ones, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like a lot are not well written. Makes you wonder how they get published. And if you guys have any recommendations for me, you guys see what I like, let me know down below and I'll check them out. So thank you guys, and I will talk to you again later. Bye.